Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Mitchell.
I'm Ed.
Really great to see all of you. Thank you all for coming. We're excited to have you. For those of you who were here with us last year, welcome back. We have a pretty exciting day planned. And last year we started the Global Business Forum. Freshfields and the Richmond Center at Columbia Business School got together to create the Global Business Forum, to bring people together, to bring people involved in global business together, to communicate, to talk, to share ideas, to talk about the things they worry about, what their challenges are, what the opportunities are, how they're going to compete in the global environment in the future, which seems more and more challenging every year. So last year we started the conversation, and last year's forum raised a lot of very interesting thoughts, ideas, some questions. One of those was, how was technology changing the way we do business? And we thought that's a great way to continue the conversation, and that's the theme for this year. How's technology changing the way we do business? But as we started talking about it and thinking and watched this past year transpire, we started to see it wasn't just about how technology is changing the way we do business. It's about the political environments all around the world. There's issues of nationalism, trade, tax policy, and then the crossroads, how all of these things come together, technology and trade and nationalism. And we started to realize there are some interesting questions, but it wasn't just questions. There are quite a few paradoxes we've been seeing as well. We're hoping today we'll start to address some of those paradoxes, and maybe we'll actually see some answers.
Well, to get the day going, it makes sense to take a look back. And last year, at this time, it was April 5th of 2016, we were sitting here at the Global Business Forum, and the Wisconsin primary was underway. That night, we went home, and Cruz crushed Trump, and it looked like going to be a pretty conventional political year. But we know there are a lot of surprises on the way. Britain said farewell through the Brexit. We saw the rise of nationalism in Europe, in places like France and even the Netherlands. And of course, that guy who got crushed, he became our president. Who would have thought, sitting here 12 months ago, that we would have seen the set of political surprises that we did during 2016?
Well, Ed, I'll tell you who would have thought it. You know who?
Not me.
Not me, certainly not me, but actually the people in this audience. So it was really interesting. Even a month before the Business Forum last year, Brunswick did a survey of business people and asked, who do you think is going to be president? And what did they say? Number one was Donald Trump, and just 1% behind him was Hillary Clinton. So one of the things we learned is you're the people who actually have the answers. So today, as you heard a little while ago, we have an app for you to participate in the forum. And we're really looking forward to it because you do have a lot of the answers. Panelists may have some answers. Panelists often have a lot of questions. So we're going to be looking to the audience to really participate today. You'll be able to ask questions through the app, and we're going to ask you to engage, and we're going to talk about, we're going to ask you to vote on things to help us look at how people are seeing issues. So before you turn the Wi-Fi off, we're going to have a couple of questions in the next 5 minutes or so. So try to leave it on.
Well, maybe Trump wasn't surprising to folks in this audience, and maybe the next set of pictures won't be either. It was to us. This time last year, the stock market was off to a slow start. The deal environment was off to a slow start, but in both cases, the economy just took off, the market took off. Take a look at the Dow. It broke through barrier after barrier, 19,000, 20,000, and just about a month ago, 21,000. Stock market took off, and so did the M&A environment. Slow start at the beginning, but quickly took off. Yes, it's not the best year ever. That was last year, but it was the fourth best year for global M&A in history, third best for North America. So pretty strong, pretty amazing year.
It always worries me when an economist sounds like an optimist, but it does look like a good year, but I was reading the New York Times a few weeks ago.
Got to stop, Mitchell. Got to stop.
What did they say? 2016 was a year for undoing major deals. So it may have been a pretty good deal, pretty good year, $3.84 billion worth of deals, but $800 billion of withdrawn deals in 2016. So not sure that sounds like a call for optimism. But when I look back at the whole decade, started to realize 2015 had a much lower number for withdrawn deals, but 2014 wasn't far off. And again, 2014 was viewed as a pretty good year as well. And you went back to the economic crisis and you saw a lot more withdrawn deals in that period. So once again, in the context we're seeing, seems like a pretty good M&A environment, seems like there are some headwinds and other things going on. So one of the paradoxes we're going to be talking about today, was last year a good year? Was it not such a good year? And what does it mean going forward? But when we talk about what's going on in the M&A environment, this is one of the reasons we're here today. We see cross-border M&A has really been showing a great trend. I like to skip the first year there because I think of it as an anomaly. But you look at 08 and 09 and you see the trend. We've gone from high 20s, low 30s% of cross-border M&A to almost 40%. And this is a trend that we expect to continue. And once again, that's why we have the Global Business Forum.
Well, another trend we're going to talk about today is the idea, this interesting phenomenon that we know businesses are buying each other. That's all of M&A, but businesses are starting to build again as well. This chart kind of gets us going to think about that. We've seen a trend upward in CapEx, R&D, suggesting that businesses are seeing growth opportunities and using their cash to invest for the future.
And for some reason, we don't hear as much about it, but you look at the last 4 or 5 years, once again, you're seeing a really nice trend of investments in business, in CapEx, in direct investment, and that actually is a cause for optimism. Businesses are optimistic, they're investing. When they invest, they expect returns. That means they're expecting things to continue to get better.
Well, maybe the most exciting place going on in the business environment is tech. You take a look at where the money is flowing, where is the deal making being done. Tech is not only the go-to sector, it's the go-to sector by over 50%. It's attracting more than 50% more investment than any other sector out there. And it's not just 2016, it's 2015 as well. And I think if any slide, this slide shows why we're talking about tech today. It's not only is it an exciting environment for deal making, but if you look inside different sectors of the tech area, you find that some of the most disruptive areas are actually booming, the ones where we see a lot of booming activity. Take fintech. Between 2015 and 16, we've seen like a 20% increase in investment activity in the fintech sector. That's projected to continue for the next 5 or 6 years. We're expecting a tripling of investment activity in the fintech sector.
And look, that's really, you look at those numbers, are pretty amazing. Once again, it's the financial sector investing in the financial sector. So always an interesting sign. But I think this is going to continue to be interesting. And today we have with us a guy named John Stein. John is the founder of Betterment. John is using technology to completely disrupt the asset management business and has some very strong views about where he thinks it's going to be going. So we'll hear some interesting things from John Stein, very much on the fintech sector and where it's heading and why there's so much investment in it. But what I find interesting is when you look at this past year, it's not just IPOs of technology companies or technology companies buying each other. It's strategic companies buying technology, not for synergies, not to create a bigger business immediately or to get more market share. They're buying technology to use in their business to compete in the future. Great example is just a few weeks ago when Intel bought Mobileye. $15 billion invested to help drive the driverless car. So really, really interesting. And it's not just Intel. You take a look. It's Ford and GM also making investments to get technology, not to buy other cars, but to develop the future car.
Mitchell, when I look at this, what strikes me is take a look at some of the, it's not surprising that Big Blue, Intel, really innovative companies are investing heavily in the tech sector. But take General Electric. This is Thomas Edison's company, founded in 1896. It's a chestnut of our economy. But it, too, is strategically entering the tech sector to prepare for what appears to be a really bright future.
So let me ask you a question, Ed. We're talking a lot about technology. It was a theme that came up last year. The thing that confuses me is technology really making businesses more productive?
Well, Mitchell, before we talk about businesses, let's talk about you. So 1991, Al Gore creates the internet, and your life changes.
It's a great day.
Yeah, but so what
you
were
know,
you doing in 1991?
1991, I started using the internet, started getting email. Do you know I used to get 30, sometimes 40 emails a day, every day. That was pretty exciting. All these people wanted to talk to me.
And today?
Today, 300 or 400. Can you imagine how much more productive I am today answering 300 or 400 emails every single day than when I only had to answer 30? This is great.
Well, I think that is the dark side of tech, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but let's just get the case out there. And I think anyone in this room has to sort of say, in the past 20, 30 years, our lives have been transformed in the way we communicate, the way goods are shipped, the way businesses, get things through the factory line. There's been a tremendous transformation, and it's happening faster and faster and faster. One way to make the point is just look at your phones. And let's compare the telephone to the mobile phone. You flash back, go back to like 1876. Telephone is created. It takes about 35 years for about a quarter of the population to begin using a telephone, okay? Close to, not so far from life expectancy. Now, fast forward 100 years, the mobile phone, a quarter of the population is using that within 13 years of its creation, and it's just getting faster. You go to the web. Within 7 years, a quarter of the population is using the web for email and other kinds of things. And what is going on at the same time is that the cost of computing has gone through the floor. The power of computing has gone through the roof. This kind of shows you that, but let me give you an example that kind of brings this all home. The first dot out there is about 1946. And you might say, well, there were no computers back then. There were. There was one, I think it was in Pennsylvania. It was called ENIAC. It was just like an iPad 2, except it weighed 30 tons. Now, this ENIAC could do a lot that an iPad 2 could do.
The iPad 1 may have weighed 30 tons as well.
A little harder to carry around. But the ENIAC could do a lot of things the iPad 2 could do. It could do a lot of the routines, mathematical processing. And so we could ask ourselves this kind of question: how much would it cost in 1946 to do as much as an iPad 2 does today for $300? Well, the answer to that question is half of GDP. Half of GDP in 1946 would be required to do what we do today with $300. Now, in a world where our computing power has grown so tremendously and costs have gone down so tremendously, it has to be the case that business has transformed and our economy is much more productive.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you and go to the people who know all the answers. So the first question for today is, as you look back over the last 35 years, which 5-year period do you think saw the largest increases in labor productivity? So what we're talking about is increases measured by GDP per worker. And we're not talking about just increasing, but the rate of increase. So where would you expect that to have happened? We've broken the last 35 years into 5-year periods. So it's 2012 to 2016, 2007 to 2007 to 2011, going backwards. Love to get you to vote. So if you can open up those apps and vote over these 5-year periods.
Which 5-year period saw the fastest growth in labor productivity?
Again, the rate of growth, where would you expect it to happen?
It's like you're watching a video game.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel like I should have I should have something to get to start moving them.
It's like a horse race. Who's going to win? Are you a betting man?
Well, look, if you had asked me before I looked at the numbers, I would have thought the answer is obvious. Technology just keeps expanding, keeps moving and moving. Maybe there were some slow periods and downturns in 08 and 09, maybe in the year 99, 2000.
I think the audience
I would have said today, right? This has to be the fastest time.
Post 2000's got to be the year with the greatest growth in productivity.
Sometime
there you go. Okay, let's pump up 2000. 2000.
I would have guessed the current period. But here's what's really interesting. Take a look at this. The last 20 years, Ed, where have we been heading?
Down.
Why?
Well, that's one of the paradoxes for today. I mean, that's the kind of the cool thing is that, I don't know, you in the audience, you're smarter than we are. And actually, 1997 to 2001 was becoming a pretty popular voting candidate. But we came in, we thought, the 90s, that's the era of Nickelback. There's nothing interesting going on then. But actually, and what you see is that 1997 to 2001, that's when we saw growth picking up. But the paradox is that every 5-year period since 2000, you've seen a decline in productivity growth rates.
And the most recent period is almost frightening. So what's happening with all this technology? And again, this is one of the great paradoxes. We're going to have Tom Wheeler, the recently retired chairman of the FCC. We're also going to have a panel on AI. We're going to be talking a lot about this. What's going on with productivity? What are we missing? Are we missing it in the measurement? Or is the world missing something and we're spending too much time on Snapchat and Candy Crush and not enough time actually working? But this is the other interesting fact. We showed you U.S. numbers. You look at the world, the same trend is going on.
So it's not just too many people in the United States looking at cat videos. It's all across the OECD.
So, Ed, when we think about it, should we expect technology, all this increase in technology? Once again, reading the New York Times, I know you always tell me not to. Just 2 weeks ago, I read in the Times that a robot was going to take my job.
Not you, Mitch.
That's what I said. How could a robot take maybe other people's jobs, but me? Could you imagine next year you being up here with a robot? How would you like that?
We could try it.
Thanks.
Now, look, Mitchell, the thing is that, we are in denial. We lawyers, how could someone take our jobs? But if you look over the past 20, 30 years, robots have been taking jobs left and right. And it's not just the factory floor. You could read in the journal that at BlackRock, stock pickers, robots are taking their jobs. And we're going to hear later today that lawyers, their jobs are being taken away by robots too.
So second set of voting for you. If you think about jobs that are most likely to be taken by robots in the next 20 years, we've listed 12 possibilities for you. We threw lawyers in just to keep it interesting, and investment bankers, so we can tell the first panel that they're not much better. But let's take a look. If you could vote, which jobs do you think are most likely to be lost to robots in the next 20 years?
Most likely.
So just pick one.
Don't pick lawyers.
Okay. Here goes the voting.
Oh, come on. We don't want to lose telemarketers to robots.
Right. Firefighters? Come on. We're gonna give up firefighters?
No one loves their dentist, right?
Okay, so just taking a look at these accountants. We're all against accountants, word processors. I would have thought telemarketers would have been the first people we wanted to get rid of, but I'm a lawyer, so I'm a little protective. Real estate agents, frankly, I think we've sort of almost done that already.
It's interesting. Commercial pilots. When you read stories, many people worry about robots might be better than pilots, but do you want to trust your life to a robot?
Well, let's take a look. So the Economist did a survey. They actually didn't include lawyers or investment bankers. So we changed it around a bit. But take a look. Telemarketers, they put almost 100% likelihood. Accountants weren't far behind. Retail salespeople, technical writers, real estate sales agents. There's not a lot left.
Well, when I look at this, I'm sure the audience feels this way too. When I look at this list, and I put that red bubble there, I think it's time to join the church. It's the one place where jobs remain.
Well, it's funny. When I was a little kid, my mother always used to tell this old joke about a little boy who comes running into his mother and says, Mom, I decided what I want to be when I grow up. She said, oh, that's so exciting, son. What is it? Is it you want to be a doctor? You want to be a lawyer? Looks at her very seriously and says, no, I want to be a rabbi. And she looks at him and says, what kind of job is that for a nice Jewish boy? It may be the only one left.
Maybe the only job left.
So keep laughing. It's a good joke. My mother told it. Anyway, but Ed, one more question for you. Once again, reading the newspapers, and not just the Times for this one, Donald Trump, Theresa May, aren't they going to save our jobs?
Well, we're talking a lot about robots, AI, and Donald's not talking about robots. I mean, in some sense, no one thinks we can be saved from the robots. But that's a long-term scenario. That's 20 years out. In the medium term, what Donald's worried about is offshore production, immigration, taking our jobs. He wants to bring production back to the United States because there are a lot of companies, a lot of industries that have left. When was the last time we made a television here?
But come on, we still make, people aren't giving America enough credit. We still make great things, right? We're talking about Ford before. The Mustang, 50 years we've been making the Mustang. Is there a more iconic product than the Mustang for an American product? That's the great American car.
Well, it's true. Since 1966, this is the American car, quintessentially American, but it's not really all American. We can just see here that a lot of the parts, a lot of the components of this classic American car are made in India, Japan, Germany, Mexico. Is this really the American car?
Well, isn't that sort of American?
Well, that's a cute point, Mitchell. It's true that we are a land of immigrants, but what Trump and Theresa May, for example, want to do is bring production home so that, take those components now made in Germany or Japan, they can be made here and bring jobs back.
Well, you say that, but, the other day I got a new broom.
Nice, Mitchell.
And hold on, we lost our slides. Anyway, I got this broom, really nice broom. This broom is made by a company named Costabella. Bruce Kamenstein, the founder of Costabella, is with us today, and he's going to be talking to us. He was telling me about the broom. Do you know that he has a business in New York? He started his business in New York. He's, the great American businessman, started small, been building up, took private equity in, been building his business. He wanted to make this broom. Do you know how many factories he could find that could install the bristles in this broom for him in the United States?
5, 10?
0, not one. He tells me there's not one in the U.S. who can do that for him. And he has this made in China, and it's a nice, innovative broom. I use it at home. This is I'm like Kellyanne Conway.
Well, let me see this. Now, Mitchell, I don't deny what Mr. Kamenstein is saying, but maybe today you can't find a company that inserts the bristles in the United States, but you could, within a year, maybe a few months, you could pay someone to buy that machine. You could pay someone to learn how to use the machine.
And Bruce is going to tell you, can we get the slides back up, guys? Bruce is going to, because we see them, no one else does. If Bruce is going to tell you that that's going to cripple his company. Raising those costs. You know why? Because it may be okay just to compete in the United States. You may have some sales. People may have to pay a lot of money. You put in a border tax. But what happens to your exports? How do you compete? And the thing that you can't ignore is the rest of the world. If you look at the S&P 500, 50% of sales are not in the United States. It's everywhere else. And you know what's growing fastest? Everywhere else. So once again, another interesting... I'm taking that home. Once again, another interesting paradox. We have a really interesting program for you today. We're going to start out with Tom Wheeler, the former chairman of the FCC, and he's going to talk to us about technology and productivity, what's really going on, where we were, where we are, where we're going. We're then going to have a panel on the deal environment. We're going to spend some time talking about some of the paradoxes we mentioned. Was 2016 a good year? Was it not such a good year? How did technology fit into all that? And starting to look forward a little. And then we're going to have the fintech focus. We'll have John Stein up here. It's going to be very, very interesting. And then before lunch, we have a really exciting panel as well. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence, and we have the heads of AI from Amazon, from IBM, from Zillow, and we also have Professor David Gelertner from Yale, who's one of the leaders in thinking, and may think a little differently than some of the leaders in AI. And after lunch, we have 2 more industry focuses. We're going to talk about telecom and media. We have Mike Fries, the CEO of Liberty Global. He's going to talk about telecom, media, technology. And then we're going to talk about the agriculture industry and how technology not only is, but needs to disrupt things and make us a lot more productive. And then in the second half of the afternoon, we have Professor Joe Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize-winning economist. He's going to lead a panel on free trade. You'll hear from Bruce as well as others in there. And then we're going to finish it off looking forward, and we're going to have some panelists who maybe can help us predict the future and tell us what to think about for 2018 and beyond. So with that, I'd like to invite up Tom Wheeler. Tom's the former chairman of the FCC. Just want to remind you, again, if you use those apps, you can send in questions. I'll come back up in about 20 minutes or so. We'll give Tom 5 to 10 minutes to answer some questions, and if you put them into the app, I'll be able to feed them to Tom, and we can keep the conversation going.